In this video, we're going to learn about multidimensional arrays. In general, we can make multidimensional arrays of any dimension that we want, but in this class, we're just going to work with two-dimensional arrays. So as an example, I have this tictac.c file here, where we use a two-dimensional array to represent a tic-tac board. So just like a one-dimensional array, we declare the data type of the elements of the array. Maybe I'll put a little comment there. Declare a two-dimensional array. And here, so with our one-dimensional arrays, we just indicated the size inside the brackets. Here, we're going to indicate the rows and then the columns. So we can think of this as an array of three size 3 char arrays. And so here we're seeing a two-dimensional char array. We can also make arrays of any of the other data types that we've learned about so far. And the syntax to access values at different positions is just what you might expect. So we can see, again, we're indexing starting at 0. So if I wanted to get the value that's stored at position 1, 1, so that means the second position of the rows and the second position of the columns, I would just pass in 1 and another 1. So that's what's happening right here. And so manipulating two-dimensional arrays is a lot like manipulating one-dimensional arrays. So let's just go ahead and see what that looks like by developing a function that is just going to check that every position in our tic-tac-toe board is filled in. So we want this to return us an int, say, that indicates whether the board is filled. So I'm just going to say filled is whatever is returned to me by, let's say, check filled, and I'm going to pass in tic-tac. And let's say I also need to pass in, well, maybe we'll just assume that a tic-tac-toe board, we know it's always 3 by 3. So I need to actually define this function. So first I'll declare it. So I said I want this to return me an int. And so I'm going to take in, let's say, I'm not going to allow myself to change my tic-tac board. All I want to do is to see if it's filled or not. So I'll say const, so I know it's an input. This is a char array. And I believe I need to specify the size of the second one here in general. And then I'll say I'm passing in, oh no, I'm not passing in the sizes. I'm assuming I know it's size 3 because it's a tic-tac board. So that should be sufficient there. And now function definition. Actually going to define my function. So I return an int. This is a const. And here I'm actually going to give it a name. So maybe I'll call it TT board. And I think I can actually say it's size 3 in both here. I think I can leave that off, but I know it's size 3, so maybe I'll just do that. And then, so let's say in the end, I'm going to return a variable called f. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say initialize f to be 1, and if we find a part of the board that is not filled, So it's going to be not X or O, change F to 0. So this is sort of a way that I can get at sort of a Boolean, even though we don't have a Boolean type yet. So to do this, I'm going to need to walk over my two-dimensional array, right? So we saw that we can use for loops to process a one-dimensional array, and so we can use a nested for loop to process our two-dimensional array. So let's just initialize some variables to do that, just so that we're really clear. So I might have an integer r for the rows and an integer c for the columns. And I'll give myself a comment here. R is the rows, C is the columns. And so now I just need to write my nested for loop. So for, I'll start my R's at 0, and we're just hard coding in our size of our array here. We know that our rows only go up to, really they're just going to, the indices are only going to go to 2 because it's size 3. So that's going to loop me over my rows. And now this is going to loop me over my columns. Oopsies. And now check if the tic-tac board at rows, my current row and my current column is filled. So I'm going to say something like, if, what did I call it in here? TT board at R, C, and I'm going to need my parentheses around my conditional statement here. If that is not equal to X, or I guess actually that should be an and. So I want this to be true only if it's both not equal to X and not equal to O. Sometimes it can be confusing to think about whether you need an and or an or, because in English, when we speak, we're not super precise, but of course the computer needs us to be very precise. So we're just here assuming that anything other than an X or an O would be not filled. And so if this is true, then I would like to change F to 0. F assigned to be 0. And did I return my F? Yeah, I did. Oh, I never initialized F to be 1, did I? And F equals 1. Let's see if this helps. And filled. Oh, yes, I need to declare my filled variable. Declare variable for filled, and I'll say int filled. And this should at least get rid of those errors, and we should probably print something out to know that our program actually executed correctly. So let's print filled equals, now I need my integer placeholder there, and that should get me there. So let's compile this. And it seems like we didn't get any errors there. And let's see. Okay, we still have that print statement at the start. And in this case, we got filled equals 1. So that means we never found an unfilled position. And let's just just to check ourselves, what happens if I change that to a y, and I compile, and I run again, and now I got filled equals 0. So that was just an example of using multidimensional arrays. And the last thing I want to mention before I finish this video is the size of our multidimensional array. So here I would say that this tic-tac variable has size 9. It holds 9 things, right? If I have 3 in one dimension and 3 in the other, then its size is 9. So size of multi-dimensional, I guess size of 2-dimensional is my size 1 times size 2. So don't let that trip you up. And here we saw that we can declare these using the same curly bracket notation that we saw for single-dimensional arrays. But another thing that we can do, just like single-dimensional arrays, is we can declare without initializing. So in some of your assignments, you're going to be reading in data from a file, or potentially you could also read it from input. And so in that case, I'd need to, let's say I was going to read my tic-tac data from the console, then I just want to declare my tic-tac variable here, and I wouldn't fill in the data yet. And I would just do that, say, in a for loop, or however I was going to do that. And so I think that's everything for multidimensional arrays.